The media seems to have a fetish for the low fertility Japanese dystopia. Every other day we hear about plummeting birth rates, hikikomori, the herbivore men, and how people are apparently not having coitus anymore. Headlines scream doom, gloom, and impending national extinction. Over the past few decades, the Japanese government has tried almost everything to reverse this trend, from childcare subsidies to tax incentives to paternity leave. But progress has been painfully slow. And now, in a move that feels both futuristic and strangely desperate, Tokyo is testing something new, a state run AI matchmaking app. Released in September 2024, Tokyo En Musubi, which is an old fashioned phrase that literally means to tie the knot, evokes the Shinto idea of invisible threads binding people together. As romantic as the app sounds, it kind of sucks. As we shall see, the app is bogged down by a stifling bureaucracy that even Japanese users are complaining about. Its abysmal UI UX design and overly simplistic AI exacerbates the already painful process of finding love in the big city. But even if all the tech were fixed, Tokyo En Musubi is a prime example of AI washing, slapping on a technological veneer to a problem while leaving its root causes untouched. The Japanese government might have done decades of policy work, but these measures collide with deep-seated cultural norms around work, gender expectations, and family. In effect, there is a battle between policy and culture, and in many cases, policymakers aren't willing to confront the cultural foundations directly. The result is that no app, however sophisticated, can truly solve the underlying fertility crisis in Japan. We'll get into the app a bit later, but first, let's take a look at matchmaking in Japan. Traditional Japanese matchmaking is called omiai. In an omiai, marriages were arranged by families, often with the help of a matchmaker, a nakodo. The process was highly structured and formal. It started with extensive background checks, where families examined social status, education, career prospects, and even financial assets. Reputation of the family and lineage could carry as much weight as the individual's qualities. Some families went even as far as to hire PIs to investigate and verify details. Formal introductions would be made, and meetings between families were carefully orchestrated. Discussions could take weeks or months before an engagement was even considered. Relationships were understood not just as unions between individuals, but as alliances between families. In the modern era, casual dating apps like Tinder and Bumble have introduced a new model: fast, low stakes, and often ephemeral. But Japan's dating ecosystem remains uniquely hybrid, blending tradition and modernity. There are global apps that cater mostly to foreigners or cosmopolitan users. There are also domestic platforms like Pairs that focus on serious, marriage-minded dating with features that mirror some of the vetting and compatibility assessments of traditional omiai. And there are also still traditional, formal matchmaking companies blending structured meetings, family oversight, and social guidance with digital tools. With all of the competition out there, why build a new app? The Japanese government website claims that roughly 70% of people who want to marry in Tokyo hesitate to act or take the first step. The app thus aims to bridge this gap of hesitation by providing a seamless, secure environment for serious marriage seekers to find a partner. And so with those bold ambitions, the Tokyo metropolitan government launched Tokyo En Musubi in September of last year. Anyone in Tokyo aged 18 and above can apply if they pay a registration fee of 11,000 yen, which is about 70 US dollars. At the heart of the app is its threefold value proposition. First, AI-powered matching. Based on personality and value assessments, the system recommends 4 potential partners. Second, the app offers strict verification. Users must submit proof of single status, ID, and income verification. Third, experienced relationship managers provide in-app guidance and counseling throughout the user's activity. Will the app resolve Japan's long-standing marriage and fertility woes? Unfortunately, I don't think so. Tokyo En Musubi seems to be designed to maximize friction in the already annoying process of signing up for a dating app. Getting started on the app is painful. Users must submit official documents, including the proof of being single. Then they must wait through a manual screening process that can take up to 2 months before they can even see a match. One interviewed user summed it up perfectly.
まず一言で、とにかく面倒くさいっていうのが、
面倒くさい。
はい、一番の印象だなっていうことなんですけど。
And maybe this is just a legacy quirk of traditional Japanese matchmaking, but the app seems somewhat dictatorial, policing your every move. When you are moving between being friends to casually dating to seriously dating, or you're just hoping to get the person's number, you're actually supposed to formally notify your relationship manager in the app. So let's say you survive the paperwork. Unfortunately, your problems are just beginning. The app itself is incredibly clunky. The interface feels more like an early 2000s GeoCities website than it does a modern, sleek mobile application. It's slow and awkward to search for potential partners, and there are myriads of forms that you must actually fill in with very, very small text. And then there's the AI. We talk about AI like it is this omniscient god, but the algorithm is shallow and simplistic, matching just based on a few EQ and MBTI test score similarities. One dating coach critiques the simplistic algorithm in this clip.
AI って結局何を正解にするか、
はい、
AI でマッチングさせますっていうのが価値観が一致していますを正解にしてしまうっていうところがそもそも出発地点としては僕は悪だと思うんですよ。
はいはいはいはい。
だって価値観って違った方がいいこともあるんじゃなくて、スポーツってなったとしてもじゃあゴルフです、じゃあスコアが80です、120です、だったら楽しめなくね。
確かに。
But maybe we can say the same thing about any dating app. And maybe the clunky design and awkward interfaces work in Japan. The truth is, my problem with En Musubi is more about what the app represents. It's a band-aid solution applied to a deeper social wound, a way of avoiding the real conversation. Japan's relationship crisis doesn't come from a lack of matching algorithms, it comes from deep structural forces, economic, cultural, and political, that not even decades of policy could fix. By focusing on tech, policymakers get to look innovative without actually challenging those forces. It's a kind of AI washing, using technology as a shiny distraction, a fake proof of progress that leaves the root causes completely untouched. To be fair, it's not like the Japanese government hasn't tried other things. Over the past few decades, the Japanese government has launched wave after wave of policies to reverse the fertility decline. But despite all these efforts, the birth rate still keeps falling. And I think it's because the policies collide head-on with cultural norms. And instead of challenging those norms, many politicians quietly continue to reinforce them. Let's look at what some of the enduring causes of the fertility crisis in Japan are. We can start with working in Japan. Even after the 2019 Work Style Reform Act, overwork remains deeply embedded in Japan's corporate culture. The annual average working hours may have fallen, but these gains are eaten up by long commutes and unpaid overtime, called zangyo. Burnout and even karoshi, which means death from overwork, remain a grim reality. Vacation days exist on paper, but taking them is kind of frowned upon. Employees fear being labeled selfish or disloyal, so they often relinquish their leave. While laws exist to cap overtime, many companies actually circumvent the limits. Common tactics include classifying overtime as voluntary, pressuring employees to record fewer hours, and using contracts with exempted categories. Policymakers are aware of loopholes being exploited, but challenging entrenched corporate practices is politically difficult, so enforcement is uneven. Having worked in Japanese companies myself, I've seen how senior members take a morbid pride in performing hard work. Long hours are treated as a kind of badge of dedication rather than as a problem to solve. So having seen this, I find it hard to believe that any amount of non-enforced policy can change this type of deeply entrenched behavior. In this time-poor climate of endless overwork, People aren't just busy, they're mentally exhausted. Romance requires emotional energy, spontaneity, and the freedom to explore connection. But when every day is consumed by long hours, commuting, and stress, many young people and adults simply aren't in the psychological space to think about dating or building relationships. Love becomes another task to manage, not a pursuit of joy. But it's not just time poverty. It's actual financial poverty that factors into this problem as well. The stats are extremely clear. Survey after survey shows that 40% of unmarried people in their 20s want to marry, but nearly as many say that financial constraints make it impossible or really difficult. In 2025, Japan is arguably still in its lost decades. Real wages have barely grown in 30 years, and so raising children is increasingly viewed as a luxury, not a given. The economic constraints are entwined with gendered expectations, with very different challenges for men and women. Men face the traditional breadwinner expectation. They're still culturally expected to provide a stable income before marrying or starting a family. With stagnant wages and rising living costs, many feel they simply cannot meet the societal standards required to marry. Women, on the other hand, face a different kind of economic pressure. While many are fully employed, they also anticipate the career interruptions and unpaid domestic labor that come with child rearing. Even when they have sufficient income, the prospect of losing professional independence or being expected to shoulder most of the household work can make marriage and motherhood financially and personally costly. Here too, policy faces a choice. Either fundamentally rethink the economy and society, or double down on the old model of male breadwinner plus stay-at-home mother. Increasingly, politicians lean towards the latter, framing low fertility not as an economic issue, but a moral one. Their message is subtle but clear. Women should return home, men should work harder, and families should just behave properly. In conclusion, Tokyo En Musubi is not the best app out there, but even if it were fantastic, no algorithm can create free time, economic stability, or shared parenting, the conditions people actually need to sustain a family. The Japanese government might implement a set of policies intended to raise birth rates, but they're not willing to do so at the cost of changing Japan's deeply traditional social order. So in some sense, the battle isn't just policy versus culture, it's also policy protecting culture. In that context, Tokyo En Musubi starts to look less like a real solution and more like AI washing, a shiny, low-cost intervention that lets policymakers show action without confronting the hardest problems head on.